Welcome back to your favorite comedy finance channel. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. So I'm going to try out this OBS way of streaming so that way maybe I don't get cut off, okay? Usually I was always streaming directly off YouTube and, it would always lose connection or whatever the case. So I'm hoping that using it this way, maybe we won't get cut off. So we'll see how far we can get into this stream without any interruptions. So you guys let me know how it goes and let me know how it does, okay? But I do want to just kind of re-go over our last video and kind of go over, how I'm feeling and what we're anticipating as we go forward, okay? If you guys noticed, gold has been like really screaming at us lately. It's like showing at almost $3,100. And this, more than anything, to me is kind of like screaming that something is about to happen, like some sort of catalyst. And for me, when I'm looking at gold at $3,100, like I'm really anticipating some sort of like false flag event to happen, or this is definitely a signal that the dollar is losing value, or some sort of signal that people are looking for a safe haven because there's so much uncertainty happening, okay? Now, with the Fed constantly pausing rates, keep in mind that this is pausing time frequency in the market. So you have to elongate what your expectations are when it comes to how long this bull market will last. A lot of people, they spent their first cycle in 2020, and this kind of clouded their judgment as to how long this bull market would last. So I do want to really give you guys a reality check and how long this cycle will be, because a lot of people, they have the misconception of how long bull cycles do last. They think that it's only going to last like a few months or it'll last only a year or whatever the case. But, bull cycles, they could last 4 years. They could last up to 8 years, give or take. They're really predicated off of business cycles. But the only reason why you saw like that uptick that went up real high, and like that you saw the uptrend and you saw the downtrend real fast back in 2020 and 2022 was only because we had fast rate cuts and fast rate hikes, okay? And that was because of a black swan event. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity, a emergency measure that we saw with COVID. And that was different, now this time it is different. We have a different scenario. There's nothing like that happening right now. We don't have some sort of black swan event happening. But there are a lot of different things that can happen. There are, clearly we could always see some new black swan event happen, but, I don't think we're going to see anything substantial like we saw with COVID. I do think that there are a lot of things that can happen, in regards to, some of the signals that I've been seeing out there that I've been paying attention to, like the fact that, the FDIC has been being eyed down by dog agency for being abolished. I feel like the government has really been signaling since 2008 that they're going to not bail out banks. And if they're going to abolish the FDIC, they're preparing us for a bank bail-in, and that's where they steal depositors' money. So that's really the reason why I tell people, even when it comes down to pulling profits, it's better to have your cash in a stable coin versus having your cash in the bank. If you really needed your cash, then it's actually better to have it in a stable coin versus in the bank, because the banks are insolvent. Put it this way, their ratio is, for every dollar you put in, they're removing 99 cents of it, okay? So when it comes down to your stable coins, they have a 1-1 ratio. So, it's a little bit different. It's the same thing with exchanges. They need a 1-1 ratio when it comes down to their backing, and they need to make money off their transaction fees. So, in reality, the exchanges and the stable coins are more solvent than what the banks are, okay? Because they're pretty much 99 to 1. For every dollar you put in, they're lending out 99 cents of that dollar, Okay, so when you're putting that in perspective, you're actually at a greater risk putting your money in the bank versus you putting your money in crypto via stablecoin or just holding it into an asset class. Okay, so I do want to kind of put that in perspective for you when it comes down to risk. Now, there's nothing wrong with holding money in the bank, obviously, but it just depends on what you really need it for, and that's just kind of the way I see it. Besides that, I do think that, this next Fed meeting, they said that, there's 2 rate cuts planned for this year. And granted, there's really no reason why we should ever rate cut this year. If you think about it, the CPI is at 2.8%. They just got through raising the expectations to 4.1% for the next 5 years. Okay. They first said the expectations or the projections for the next 5 years was going to be 3.8%. Now it's 4.1%. If the bond yields are roughly 4% and change, then what's going to really entice bond investors to hold those assets if inflation's already projected to go higher than 2.8% and if it's going to go to 4%? So as a bond investor, if inflation is already projected to supersede the yield of your bond, then wouldn't it be better for you to sell your dollar at today's 104 exchange rate versus waiting for the depreciation of that 104 exchange rate versus waiting for that yield to that yield generation? So that's why it's, for me, it's very easy to see that this trade is unfolding between all these countries. And, I've always kind of really looked at all these excuses right now with the government where they're saying, well, the tariffs are creating inflation. Or the tariffs, some people are saying tariffs are fighting inflation, but they're not. They're increasing inflation. And I feel like it's really an excuse. It's really an excuse to raise inflation. And it's really like a guise than anything to say like, oh, well, it's due to Trump doing this as to why this is happening. But the real reason as to why inflation is happening is because of decades of what the government's been doing, not because of what Trump has been doing in the last 3 months. You see what I'm saying? So, it's kind of funny how like the government constantly tries to pivot away from what it's been doing constantly over the years. Besides that, I do want to bring up the fact that, there is really no reason to cut rates. Now, if they do end up cutting rates at any point, inflation is going to go a lot hotter than 2.8%. So once we get over that 2.93% hurdle, at what point is somebody going to say the inflation rate target is arbitrary again? And that's something that they've been talking about too. I remember when they were saying that we're not even, thinking about changing the inflation rate target, so they might even end up changing that at some point too. I think they'll end up changing it to 3% because I don't think we're ever going to be able to get back to 2%. If you take a look at the debt deficit or the debt ceiling is $36.1 trillion. If the debt deficit and the debt ceiling is, let's say the debt ceiling is at 36.1 trillion and we have an inflation rate of 2.8%, okay? Or let's just call it 3%. That means that our monetary supply is increasing by roughly 3%, okay? Now, add on what we're going to be rolling over in the next year. So we're already going to be getting closer to $40 trillion in supply, plus more in interest. So as we go into the future, this is going to start snowballing in effect with inflation. So, I really do think at some point in the future, we're going to be heading towards this infinite amount of taxation, really. I think that we're going to get into this area of monetary environment, like this monetary environment where the governments are going to start saying like, oh, well, we're going to need like a wealth tax because they're going to see the monopoly that investors are going to be able to have at some point Because you think about it, for those of us that are smart enough to actually put our money and hedge it into assets that rise with inflation, they're going to say, well, how is it fair for everybody else, right? And that's what they did in countries like Spain. For people that hold precious metals, or they hold hard assets, they actually put a wealth tax on people that have those assets. So it's a little bit strange that they do that. Now, besides that, remember the favorite picks that I got, DIA, and keep in mind, DIA has crazy amounts of chain integrations. I've talked to a lot of you guys about this already. They have over 20,000 chains integrated already. They could integrate with any chain. It's a multi-chain oracle. They could do pretty much anything Chainlink can't do. And that's the best part, okay? XRP and even XLM partnered with them. All right, so it has all the Kool-Aid that you could possibly get with it. On top of what we're delivering. Okay, so DIA, SD, Stater Labs, ArcBlock, Dragon Chain, Polkastarter, POLS is that one, and then React token. React token we just got through calling. That's on crypto.com, KuCoin, and also gate.io. But those are just some of the calls that we've been talking about. And right now is the downtime. We've been side trending. And the reason why that we've been side trending is because of all the pausing. When the Fed is hiking or cutting rates, those are going to be changing the frequency of the market. The frequency of the market is going to be fluctuating based on what the Fed does. But in the same point too, this is what's going to change the time frame of what the cycle will be too. Okay, so as we're going through this side trend, you should be accumulating. This is a good time, and for those of you guys, a lot of you guys just got through paying your taxes. This is a new time to start building, to rebuild your portfolio. So kind of reset your minds to restack your portfolios. There's always more money to make. And I know a lot of people, even though, you guys have made 6 or 7 figures or whatever the case, so you're always going to say, well, I'm going to make this amount of money. And you're going to say, well, after I make this amount of money, I'll be done, or I'm going to retire, or whatever the case. That's just this fallacy you tell yourself. But I promise you that one day you're going to look at hundreds of thousands of dollars in your bank account, or millions of dollars in your bank account, and you're going to say, well, I still need to make more money, or I still need to pay for a lot of different things. So keep in mind that this is just this idea that this dream of a finish line, and there's never going to be a finish line. You're just going to constantly be an investor. Okay, when you're an investor, you're just going to continue investing, because investing creates the need for more investing. So keep in mind that your life portfolio depends on you to continue building what you got. So don't give up, and don't feel like you need to stop stacking at any point every year. Okay, so keep adding to your bag, keep stacking. You guys just got through seeing a lot of growth in 23 and also 24, especially since 2022. So now, as we go through this side trend, we see this downtime. It's a really good time to start stacking your bags or rebuilding what you got, and then prepare for this next up season that we're going to go through. And right now is a really good time to get in there before they start cutting rates, because they are going to end up cutting rates. Let me tell you why. Okay. And this is what's going to end up happening. Now, keep in mind, they shouldn't be cutting rates because inflation doesn't call for it. But they're going to end up cutting rates because the unemployment numbers are going to be going through the roof. The unemployment numbers are probably 2 or 3x bigger than what they're showing us today. And the reason why is because a lot of the numbers that we have been cut in are really just like fractions of what they should have been, if not the government had filled those gaps with a bunch of these fluff jobs. Okay, there was a bunch of fluff government agencies, government branches, government jobs, and now they're cutting all those jobs. Okay, Not to mention there's a lot of tech jobs that are being cut right now too. Okay, there's a lot of AI coming out. So a lot of this stuff is going to inflate those job percentages. So, that's going to really show that the unemployment numbers are going to skyrocket. So that percentage is going to go a lot higher. So that's going to show that, hey, look, we really are in this recession area. So I think that's going to also trigger the need for rate cuts, okay? And that's kind of what they do. Whenever they see the unemployment numbers, and this is historically, whenever they see the unemployment numbers are very high, they start to cut rates. And the reason why they cut rates is because they want small businesses or they want companies to borrow cheaper money so they could employ more people, or they could build, or they could grow, or whatever the case, or they can entice companies to issue growth strategies for whatever. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's a lot of different catalysts that are happening right now, whether you look at the bond market, whether you look at what the unemployment numbers could be, whether you look at what the tariffs are going to do with taxes, or what tariffs will do to entice governments or other foreign governments to do with their bonds. Or if you take a look at gold, if you see it going past that, if you see it going to $3,100, clearly you're seeing a devaluation in the dollar. You're seeing confidence being lost in the dollar. That means that people are less likely to hold bonds, less likely to hold dollars, which means you're going to see a devaluation in the buying power of the baseline. So if there's a devaluation in the dollar, then you're going to see asset prices go up, okay? So, there's a lot of different factors that are going on right now that really are showing us that we're on the verge of that mega bull cycle coming, okay? So we're in the bullish territory, although right now we're in that boring phase of things. A lot of people right now are in this disbelief phase because of how boring things are. But, to be honest with you, investing should be boring. Investing shouldn't be fast paced. If investing is fast paced, then I think that you're getting scammed or you're being rinsed in some sort of way. So, this is actually the best time to really be getting into it, is when things are subtle, when things are very cheap, things aren't really moving, but you're still buying things at a very good price. And then good prices are really out there right now. Now, I do want to touch base on a little bit of politics out there right now. I do want to say that it's kind of weird with this whole thing with Greenland. I've been seeing that, like, there's a lot of talk between these different governments or these different countries of annexing land. Okay, so whether you're talking about Israel or you're talking about America with like Greenland and Canada, like these different countries talking about taking over different lands. And I don't know if this is kind of like some sort of like undercover way of saying that we're ready together, or if this is kind of a tiptoe into war. I don't know. I'm not really sure, but there's a variety of different reasons. But I've heard some, like, well, Trump is saying that we need Greenland because because of China's warships around those waterways. But I've also heard on the flip side that there's at some point going to be climate wars because there's a water shortage and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of different things that I've been thinking about on that. We'll see what eventually happens, but like I don't really like the idea of annexing land and all that other stuff, because first we had this whole problem with immigration and all this other stuff, but now we're talking about annexing land. That's kind of getting into this weirder territory where it's like, all right, now what are we doing? Because like at first we were talking about like mass deportation, we're talking about getting people out of our country. Now we're talking about us getting into other people's countries. So it's like really weird how we're like really shifting this whole narrative here. So a little bit weird there. What else can we talk about? let's see. I don't want to leave out anything. Um, don't want to leave out anything else for you guys. I did see that BitBoy got arrested. Apparently he was like harassing a judge or something like that. And he got arrested, and I'm not sure if he's out, but you know, I saw him tweeting on Twitter, so I'm not sure if he's texting from jail or if he's out of jail. I'm not sure what's going on with that whole situation. We'll see how he does when he gets out. Not really sure what's going on there. But you know, speaking of people that are in jail, I did see a lot of different people getting pardoned by Trump. I don't know if you guys noticed that he's like pardoning every person that's convicted of fraud out of jail. He just got through pardoning some people, some CEOs from BitMEX. They were convicted of fraud back in the day, so they just got the getting pardoned, and those were CEOs of these fraudulent exchanges. So maybe we might see SBF get, you know, pardoned from the FTX fraud. So maybe we might see him get pardoned from that. So we'll see what happens there. But if they brought CZ out, maybe they'll bring SBF out, you know? So, you know, this all goes back to this bullshit, you know, where it's just like, what even matters anymore, right? You know, like, you know, right now, this timeline to me has been the weirdest. Like, we live in this lawless area right now, and like, I'm happy for the crypto industry. Like, I'm very happy for the builders, and I'm happy that we're in this territory where like we don't have to be afraid anymore. Like, you know, especially for me too as a builder, like I was always scared. Like, you know, I was afraid to talk about MYC sometimes. I went through a phase in 2021 where I was like very afraid to talk about what I wanted to build and how much I wanted to build these different projects, stuff like that. And it was hard to advertise because if you wanted to advertise or market, you know, you ran that chance of being scrutinized or whatever the case. And now we don't have that issue. So like now it gives us the freedom to really build these different brands. So I'm really excited about that because now we can go back to all these different brands and we could try to build these things. Okay. And I'm excited about doing those things. And it's very bullish for MYC token because, you know, we're one of the only companies out there that actually built a real company around this. We built real software product. We have people that play with OddApp every day. And it's very real. You know, we've had events. I've met so many different people. We've been on yachts. We've had so much fun. And I'm very excited for this timeline that builders could come together. We could do real things. You know, this is an awesome time. But at the same time, it's just crazy how far, you know, a lot of this stuff is going because, you know, there's people like me and a variety of other people that have merit, and, you know, we actually want to help people and we want to do good things, and we want to build real things and we want to do fun stuff, and we have merit. You know, we have integrity. We want to do the right thing. We want people to win. And then we see there's these people that like actually like launch things with the intent to rip people off. And that's where it's kind of like, man, that's fucked up, you know, and but like it's completely okay apparently now, you know, and that's where it's just kind of like, it kind of like gives you that it gives you like that very that uneasy feeling where you're like, oh, you know, it doesn't look good on the industry, especially for people like us, you know, because we want everybody to look at the industry a little bit more seriously. We want people to respect it a little bit more. And me personally, like, I don't, you know, I always want people to respect builders a lot more. Influencers for the most part, I have a respect for in some nature, because that's kind of where I came from. But at the same time, like, seeing what influencers have turned into now is kind of like, trash. A lot of influencers today are kind of like, everything is like shock bait. Everything is kind of like this regurgitated parrot talk. A lot of it is just like, you don't really see the originality. You don't really, you get a guy that, maybe they'll read off an article or something like that. They don't really got like a real background, or, no real experience in finance or anything like that. You really just like, read along Mr. Rogers type shit. You know what I mean? No real like opinion. So I would like to see more originality out there, but like without the shock bait. You know what I mean? But that's what we're seeing a lot more in politics too. Like it's like with these podcasts. Like, I really don't like these podcasts. Like, you don't really see real opinions. You see people just with these bullshit opinions that are just meant to shock bait people, or like to incite anger, just for the sake of like engagement, versus actually being genuine about the topic. You know what I mean? It whether you're hearing from like Pearl, or you're hearing from like Fuentes, or Andrew Tate, like those types of personalities. Like, I don't really feel like they're like, sometimes you could hear the genuineness of some of their opinions, but sometimes you could hear just where they're just trying to piss somebody off. You know what I mean? Where it's not as genuine. Let's see. Jesus is Lord. That is correct. I think I didn't really. I did hear about Warris, but I didn't really care about it too much. It didn't really seem interesting to me. And I also think I reviewed the Tokenomics. It wasn't very appetizing to me either. I did hear about it though. When endless heavy-chested blondes? Well, hopefully by this quarter, sir. We're hoping by the end of this quarter. Let's see. Well, I'm looking at my mic, and it looks like it's picking up pretty well. Let me see. I'll put my mic up a little bit more. I'm not sure if it helps. Volume is fine on your end. Okay, good. Well, I'm not sure. But anyways, look, anything else with you guys? If you guys have any questions, you could always feel free to ask any questions if you want, anything like that. That's perfectly fine. I did want to kind of just make this video and play with this, and this is what we're going to do from now on, because clearly it wasn't me. It wasn't my internet connection. It was actually YouTube, because apparently it's a YouTube thing versus what my connections was. Because for whatever reason, when I was doing streams, like, it would get cut off like every 15 minutes. And like, as you could see, we've been streaming for I don't know how long now. But we have no interruptions. Everything's fine. Everything's good. I do like NCT. And see, I see, if I don't talk about something for a while, a lot of people think I'm not bullish on it. That's not true. Okay, NCT is still a call, still a good coin. If a coin is not a good call, or if it's a bad coin, I will say so. I will say, hey, this coin didn't do good, or whatever. I will like call it out, and I'll pivot it. Okay. So NCT, I've never said that. I've never said it was a bad coin, like, ever. So I don't know where that came from. I don't know where anybody ever got the expectation or perception that I didn't like NCT. So NCT is still a very good coin, Polyswarm. Um, like a good example, like Math Token, LCX, and ALF. Those are coins that I called that are not good anymore. They're not good coins. It did not perform well for various reasons, or there's something wrong with them. Bad news, migrations. Like for instance, I had some dumbass the other day on Twitter. It was a fake account, but he was like, "Oh, you were talking shit about PRQ the other day, and now you're calling React token." I'm like, because PRQ was a bullshit token because they were migrating. Why the fuck are you gonna buy a coin that's migrating? So clearly, you're not gonna buy a coin that's migrating, right? Okay, so there you go. I called React token because that's a brand new coin. That's their coin, so now it's brand new. It's a brand new ecosystem. It's its own chain. It burns like a motherfucker. So now that's a 310 million coin cap. That's gonna bang. It's gonna be a big one. I think that's gonna be over 100x call. So that's gonna probably run well over $8. And it probably could do Solana numbers because that's going to be its own chain. It has less tokens than Solana, so I think it'll do a lot better than a lot of coins out there. So again, my favorite picks right now, and guys, these are going to be the biggest bangers. Like, think about it. If the dollar is going to be losing value, you're going to want the coins with the best compression. Okay. And the best compression are going to be the coins that have the lowest supply. So, you're going to be looking at ArcBlock ABT. That's 186 million coin supply. Very good tokenomics, multi-chain ecosystem there. You have SD, which is Stater Labs. That's a multi-chain liquid staking platform. It is the next Aave on fucking steroids. Aave went triple digits, okay? That is, and that only catered to ETH, okay? Stater, SD, that caters to every ecosystem. What else do we got? PokeStarter, that is a launch pad. Okay, that's multi-chain launch pad. XRP is going to use them, Solana, everybody. Even Binance is using them. Okay, that's going to be an IDO launch pad. So think about it. If Pump.Fun did 600 million in revenue, then PokeStarter could do way more in revenue than that. Okay, so put it this way. That's 100 million coin supply. They ran $7 last cycle, okay? And the CEO just reported record-breaking staking for this year. So he's saying that they're probably going to do bigger than last ATH this year. So, that's over $7 right now, okay? I think it's like 24 cents right now. And then there's React token, which is 8 cents right now. That's 100x to $8. Dragon Chain is over 500x call already, when it was called. I don't think Alpha is dead. I don't think it's a bad project. I just think it didn't perform well enough for me to ever buy it again. So that's why I'm just I'm not interested in it anymore. But I don't think it's a bad project. Okay. So don't get me wrong on that. So, like for instance, do I think LCX is like a bad company or like a bad idea or something like that? No, I don't. I don't think it's a bad company or a bad idea, but I don't like the way I don't like operations. I don't like the way they manage that coin. I feel like they fucking dumped on us. I feel like they didn't let that coin scale the way it could have. So again, it didn't perform the way we wanted it to perform. So I'm not gonna buy that coin again. So we only got like I think a 10x out of that. So I'm not gonna buy it. And then plus they keep they keep saying that they want to create their own chain. So, you know, at some point, all they're going to do is they're going to liquidate that coin. They're never going to let it scale. They're going to liquidate it until they create their new chain and migrate. So, Monty could say whatever the fuck he wants to say. You know, he could pretend all he wants, but he knows what he's going to do. Like, he's fucking stupid. What else? It was like the same thing when like Parsec was like pissed off at me about how they were migrating. They were like all pissed off at me because I called it ahead of time that they were going to migrate. And they blocked me and they were so upset about it. And I'm like, why? Like, just because I know better, because I know what you're going to do, you know, I'm a builder. So, you know, because I'm a builder, I'm not going to stick around and let you fuck me. So because I'm not going to let you fuck me, you're going to block me and be all upset about it. So, you know, whatever. But anyways, we own the bottom of React token, so I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's over. What else? Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to look at one more of your pick, and if it's another shitty pick, I swear to God. What is wrong with you, bro? All right. Can one of the moderators mark LTV or whatever the fuck his name is as spam? He has like the shittiest picks. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know where you guys get some of these picks. It's like, bro, look at the chart was terrible. And look, you know, I know a lot of you guys try to put together a formula. Like, here's one thing that I really hate about you guys. Sometimes you guys sometimes will try to put together like the MYC formula as to what I think is a good pick, and you think to yourself like, well, Dion just likes coins that are like small supply. No, that is incorrect. That is a filter. That's one layer of what I look at. But I look at a lot of different things before I say something is a good pick. For instance, React is a 500 million coin supply coin. That's not a small supply. If the circulation is 310 million, that's okay. Okay, it's moderate, but it could scale. You know, so, you know, just because, you know, and again, it's about entry. It's about entry. It depends on where you're at. If I was like 100 billion coin supply coin could be very lucrative to get into if you're getting in there for the billion. If you're getting in there like in the decimals, for instance, like MYC token right now, it's 100 billion coin supply coin, okay? But there's only 41.5 billion coins circulating. However, you're getting it for decimals at a penny. If you were to get into it right now, that's a very good deal when you're getting into it in the decimals versus if you were getting in at like 25 cents. Okay, like the XRP kids are buying a coin that's 100 billion coin supply right now, and they think they're getting a good deal at $2. Fucking stupid, right? I know. So again, like it depends on entry. It depends on your entry versus the tokenomics. So, you know, it's not about just the supply. It's about the entry, okay? And also, you know, if the coin is another thing too, the tokenomics, when they're too small, it could be the same thing as a large cap, okay? When the tokenomics are too small, then it could take a lot of money to even move the coin. So, you know, if it's like 10 million, 50 million coin supply, that's way too small. Okay. Sometimes, it's weird. The frequency of tokenomics is, you have to understand it. You know, it's not just small to big, you know, that creates the frequency of scalability. You know, you could have it large, right? Where you have 100 billion or something, like, let's say, and you can make it kind of like, you know, where it's not as volatile. But let's say if you make it too small, it could still, you know, it can make it still hard to make it volatile, even with 10, 20 million coin supply. Yeah, all the profits went straight up Monty's nose, correct. And don't ever forget, we can go to zero by tonight, and it'll be all your fault. Don't forget. But yeah, guys, look, just wanted to give you guys a quick live stream. I will talk to you guys on another stream. I will be making more streams from here on out. I just got through getting like a new computer and all that stuff. And now we got this connection issue resolved. And for those of you complaining about the volume, shove it up your ugly ass. This is what you got. This is what you're going to get. All right. So again, don't forget to join OddApp. It is available on Google and Apple stores. I will see you guys there. I'm there 24/7. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll have a meeting where I have a voice conference, and we'll go from there. So again, guys, I will catch you there later, and we'll do another stream maybe on Monday. All right.